This is the Global 9.6 unit exam multiple choice section. Remember, as we go along, if you need more time, just pause the video. So for questions 1 and 2, you're going to use this passage below. And it says, from food gathering to food producing. Paleolithic men could not control their food supply. So long as they relied on foraging, hunting, fishing, and trapping, they were dependent on the natural food supply in a given area to keep from starving. But while Paleolithic men continued their food-gathering pattern of existence in Europe, Africa, and Australia, groups of people in the Near East began to cultivate edible plants and to breed animals. Often described as the first economic revolution in the history of man, this momentous change from a food-gathering to a food-producing economy initiated the Neolithic Age. Paleolithic man was a hunter. Neolithic man became a farmer and a herdsman. Based on the passage above, identify one advantage or good thing of living the way Neolithic man lived. So remember, Neolithic man became a farmer and a herdsman. 1, more leisure time, so like time for hobbies. 2, more reliable food sources. 3, more travel. 4, greater knowledge of wild plants. Number 2, identify one effect of the change discussed in the excerpt below. 1, most humans became nomads. 2, people had more equal rights in their societies. 3, life expectancy shortened. Or 4, the first civilizations developed. So what was one effect of the change that was discussed in this paragraph? Number 3 is based on this map. So you have the original core of Buddhism, and then all of these different lines are the spread of Buddhism over time. Which concept is most closely associated with this map of Asia? Non-alignment, urbanization, colonization, or cultural diffusion? Number 4 is based on this map of, it says the eight circuits of the 13th century world system. So you have kind of like different trade and cultural circuits. Based on this map of the 13th century world systems, which of these circuits was limited to one continent, where everything in that circuit is on one continent? Is that circuit 1? Circuit 2, Circuit 5, or Circuit 6? And number 5 asks, the information on this map implies that trade made these regions what? Militaristic, interconnected, isolationist, or ethnocentric? Numbers 6 and 7 are based on this passage below. It says Li Si was a strong supporter of legalism and served as the Grand Counselor to Emperor Shi Huangdi in 259 to 210 BCE in China. In this passage, Li Si is responding to a scholar who has challenged the emperor's movement away from traditional values. I humbly propose that all historic records but those of the Qin be burned. If anyone who is not a court scholar dares to keep the ancient songs, historical records, or writings of the 100 schools, these should be confiscated and burned by the provincial governor and army commander. Those who in conversation dare to quote the old songs and records should be publicly executed, and those who use precedents or examples to oppose the new order should have their families wiped out. And officers who know of such cases but fail to report them should be punished in the same way. If 30 days after the issuing of this order, the owners of these books have still not had them destroyed, they should have their faces tattooed and condemned to hard labor at the Great Wall. The only books which need not be destroyed are those dealing with medicine, divination, and agriculture. Those who want to study the law can learn it from the officers. The emperor sanctioned or approved this proposal. Based on the excerpt below, identify Li Si's point of view. What do they think? 1. Medicine, divination, and agriculture are the most important topics to study. 2. Building the Great Wall is a reward for studying important topics. 3. Traditional values are a threat to Shi Huangdi's power. Or 4. Shi Huangdi will not bring China prosperity or good things. Number 7. A historian could best use this source to what? 1. Find out about Shi Huangdi's values as a leader. 2. Determine working conditions at the Great Wall. 3. Learn how scholars protested Shi Huangdi's policies. Or 4. Explore common tattoos in classical China. What can they find out based on this paragraph? Eight, 9, and 10 are based on this picture. So it says, identify the region associated with the image above, and it talks about a feudal manor. Is this the Middle East, South Asia, China, or Western Europe? And then 9 asks you to identify the time period associated with the image above. Is this ancient history, post-classical era, classical era, or modern era? And 10 says, most economic activities on this feudal manor were related to what? Guilds, industry, banking, or agriculture? So look at the picture and see what you can determine from that. Questions 10 and 11 are based on this quotation. So it says, the circumference of half the city of Constantinople is 18 miles, one half of the city being bounded by the continent, the other half by the sea, 2 arms of which meet here, the one a branch or outlet of the Russian, the other of the Spanish or Mediterranean Sea. Great stir and bustle prevails or dominates at Constantinople in consequence of the conflux or meeting of many merchants who resort to come there, both by land and by sea, from all parts of the world, for purposes of trade, including merchants from Babylon, and from Mesopotamia, from Media and Persia, from Egypt and Palestine, as well as Russia, Hungary, Patzinkia, Budia, Lombardy, and Spain. In this respect, the city is equaled only by Baghdad, the metropolis of the Muslims. So number 11. This author would most likely agree with the idea that, what? 1. The size of Constantinople limited trade. 2. The cities of Western Europe were more impressive than Constantinople. 3. The location of Constantinople contributed to its prosperity, so growth and good things. 4. The government of Constantinople failed to provide order. Number 12. Identify one effect of the characteristics of Constantinople described in the excerpt above. 1. Rival empires fought for control of Constantinople. 2. Constantinople was not a part of a large empire. 3. Constantinople was not affected by the diseases spread through trade, like the bubonic plague. 4. Scholars left Constantinople for other Mediterranean cities. Questions 13 and 14 are based on this passage below. It says, Muslims, Christians, and Jews live together in peace because several Christian and Jewish prophets, including Adam, Abraham, Moses, are named in the Quran, and because the Jewish Torah and Christian Gospels are recognized as revelations from Allah. The Muslim rulers called Christians and Jews people of the book and permitted them much religious and personal freedom. Jews especially enjoyed many liberties, and many Jews distinguished themselves in science, the arts, and government. Convivencia a Spanish word meaning living together, helped make 10th century Al-Andalus the most civilized country in Europe. So what's the main idea of this passage? 1, the Torah and the Bible were rejected in Muslim Spain. 2, Arabs, Jews, and Christians shared houses and places of worship in Muslim Spain. 3, religious tolerance in Muslim Spain encouraged the growth of a rich and diverse culture. Or 4, Spain was troubled by deep-rooted religious conflicts or fights. Number 14, identify one commonality between the belief systems mentioned in the excerpt below. So what do Christianity, Judaism, and Islam have in common? 1, monotheism. 2, origins in North Africa. 3, the belief in reincarnation. 4, their beliefs encouraged hatred for other belief systems. Questions 15 and 16 are based on this map. So it shows Mansa Musa's route to Mecca is this dotted line, and then trade routes are the solid line, and you can see where there are gold mines and salt mines. Number 15, which statement about the trip taken by Emperor Mansa Musa is accurate? 1, the trip extended beyond North African trade routes. 2, Mansa Musa used the Mediterranean Sea to reach Mecca. 3, the route primarily followed major rivers. 4, Mansa Musa traveled to Fez on his way to Mecca. Number 16, which conclusion about trade is best supported by the information on this map? 1, Timbuktu was a center of trade in West Africa. 2, the Sahara Desert prevented trade. 3, Cairo and Mecca were trading partners. 4, West African gold and salt were traded along the Zaire River. Number 17 is based on this passage, and its source is the history of relations between the West and the Middle East. It says Mike Schuster, reporter for NPR, says, for many in the contemporary Arab world, the Crusades are viewed as having begun nearly a millennium of conflict with what would become the West. The Crusades are seen as representing the constant threat of Western trespassing, but many scholars say that there is a more recent and inaccurate view of the Crusades. And Thomas Madden from St. Louis University says, the medieval Crusades were taken and then turned into something that they never really were in the first place. They were turned into a kind of proto-imperialism, an attempt to bring the fruits of European civilization to the Middle East, when, in fact, during the Middle Ages, the great, sophisticated, and wealthy power was the Muslim world. Europe was the Third World. Number 17. These statements indicate that the history of the Crusades, 1, has been neglected by experts, 2, was of little importance, 3, is the subject of debate and interpretation, or 4, illustrates the importance of tolerance and understanding. So for 18, 19, and 20, you have this map, and it says the course of the Black Death in the 14th century Europe. So it shows it has a city or area totally and partially spared. So this area will seem to be kind of spared. And then it shows the course of the Black Death. Which geographic theme is the focus of this map? 1, regions, how they form and change. 2, interconnectedness, humans interacting on Earth. 3, location, position of the Earth's surface. Or 4, place, physical and human characteristics. Number 19, this map shows that the Black Death 1. Began in England and Ireland and then spread eastward. 2. Spread slowly over several decades. 3. Affected most areas of Western Europe. Or 4. Was most severe in Italy. And number 20. Identify a cause of the spread of the Black Death. 1. Contact with trans-Saharan trade routes. 2. Higher elevations in northwestern Europe than in southeastern Europe. 3. Italian isolation. Or 4. Increased trade between Europe and Asia. Questions 21 and 22 are based on this map. So it says Ottoman and Safavid empires. Okay, so the the black area says Ottoman Empire, and then you have lands added, and then lands added under Suleiman. Okay, so by 1566, this was all the Ottoman Empire, and then you have the Safavid Empire in 1629. So which generalization is best supported by the information on the map? 1. The Ottoman Empire controlled the largest amount of territory by 1453. 2. The Safavid Empire controlled parts of Western Europe by 1629. 3. By the 1500s, the Ottoman Empire controlled parts of the Middle East, North Africa, and Eastern Europe. 4. The Mediterranean Sea served as a cultural barrier between Asia Minor and North Africa. Number 22. Which turning point reflected in this map took place in 1453? 1. An Egyptian became the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. 2. The Ottoman Empire conquered Constantinople by 1629. 3. An Islamic Caliphate expanded into North Africa for the first time. 4. The Safavid Empire defeated the Ottomans in 1566. And questions 23, 24, and 25 are based on this map. So it says Voyages of Zhang He. So it shows those exploration routes in the water by those big black arrows. So number 23. The map shows that on his voyages, Zhang He explored what? 1. Both the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. 2. At the same time as the Western explorers. 3. Lands on the Western Hemisphere. 4. Arabia and the east coast of Africa. Number 24. Which conclusion is best supported by the map? 1. Eastern Chinese cities had extensive contact with the Persian Empire in 1405. 2. Rivers and mountains prevented the expansion of overland Chinese trade. 3. The Chinese came into contact with people of other cultures between 1405 and 1422. 4. China was isolated from outside contact under the rulers of the Ming Empire. And 25. Which conclusion can be made about the Ming Dynasty of China as a result of the travels of Zhang He? 1. China profited more from African trade than from Asian trade. 2. Islam became the dominant religion of China. 3. The Ming Dynasty established trade routes to Europe. 4. Advanced navigation technology was available in China.